Our next panel is going to keep the energy going, and I'd like to just go ahead and cut right to them. We're going to be talking about financial crime and cybersecurity, how banks and fintechs can work together to meet the challenges of the digital era. We've heard a lot about this cooperative idea, the idea of partnerships between banks and fintechs. Obviously, so much work that they can do. Let's welcome our panelists out to the stage. Moderating this one, we have the other half of Finovate's research team, David Penn. Joining him, we have Mirto Koensoglu of Farmers Insurance Federal Credit Union, Arvind Ayala of Geodesic Investments, and Torsten George of ID DataWeb. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, David. Have a great conversation.
Thank you very much, Greg, and thank you all for sticking around for our final session of the day. Again, my name is David Penn. I'm one half of the Finovate research team, along with my senior colleague, Julie Moon, who you just got to meet and hear from. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to have my panelists, or ask them to introduce themselves, and then we're going to jump right into our conversation on financial crime and cybersecurity, starting with my immediate left.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mirto Koensoglu. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Farmers Insurance Federal Credit Union. My job is to modernize a 90-year-old organization, which means that daily I worry about cybersecurity, financial crime, gaining the trust of our customers/members, managing vendors, fintechs, and yeah, trying to keep up to date.
Great. Glad to be here. Thanks for taking the time. We are between you and drinks, I think.
Yes.
You know, Geodesic Capital, been around for about 11 years, $1 billion of assets, capital that we have raised, investing typically growth stage. I've been investing for 10 years, more than 30 investments across multiple landscapes. But, you know, investing is one thing. Seeing companies to exit is another one. So I've been fortunate to have 4 IPOs and as of yesterday, 7 M&As. So that's good. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Torsten George. I have been in IT security for more than 30 years, columnist at Security Week, nowadays also cybersecurity evangelist at ID DataWeb. So we provide threat protection for identities, and happy to be here, happy to contribute.
Fantastic. And as you can see, we have quite a diverse panel, so I think we're going to get a lot of very interesting perspectives and insights on this critical topic I'm sure is important to all of us in terms of financial crime and cybersecurity defense. I thought we'd start off with just a sort of a basic state of affairs question, state of financial crime and cybersecurity defense right now in financial services. What would you say the state of affairs is? Torsten, you talked behind the stage about some very interesting surveys that you all have done that kind of give us a sense of who's winning, who's losing, where we're standing right now, and the level of concern and readiness that financial institutions are having right now with regard to this problem. Could you maybe elaborate on that?
Sure. I mean, for me, to be frank, today's security is not secure. According to Gartner, we will be spending $238 billion in IT security and risk management tools. I wake up every morning at 4:45, check the news, and read about the next data breach, correct? So the traditional parameter completely dissolved, and we asked in a recent study 150 security leaders what they see as the new parameter. And 82% of them agreed it's identity. And the fact is, when you do post-mortem analysis, 70% of today's data breaches are rooted in weak, stolen, or otherwise compromised credentials. But then when you really dig into the detail, you will find out that these security leaders, only 28% of them feel extremely confident that they understand the attack chain. And 17% of them feel extremely confident that they're able to protect against identity-based attacks. So times have changed, and we have to adjust our defense strategies.
Absolutely. I'm curious, Arvind and Mirto, does that scan with your own experience as well? There's really stark numbers that he was able to show us.
Yeah, maybe just to add to what Torsten was saying, I mean, similar stats kind of came out from the World Economic Forum's cybersecurity outlook for 2026. And one of our own portfolio companies, Sardine, which is adjacent to what you're doing as well, is kind of, they have their fraud AML kind of report out this year, and they were reporting the global fraud is on track to doing 1.5 trillion, if that's a metric to think about in 2026, and 300% increase in the agentic AI kind of led fraud. So I think the storyline tracks, and I think your question was about how is it a stalemate, right, between the good side and the bad side? I think the bad side is actually they're usually the faster to adopt these kind of tools. So I think we just got to be better than them.
Absolutely.
But the good news is that there is awareness now, especially in financial institutions. It's not just a IT problem, or it's not just one machine fix it kind of thing. It's not just about, a side conversation in board meetings. I think it's number one area where everybody is getting together I see a movement right now between financial institutions. Just like fraudsters, they work in parallel and they're sharing, I see that with financial institutions as well. And with AI coming in, and we're going to talk about it, I know, I feel that we're going to go ahead at some point.
Interesting. And again, we're definitely going to touch on those issues of collaboration, the role of AI, some very interesting insights that you all shared in advance. I wanted to stay with you, Torsten, on this one notion that I thought is interesting. It's something else that you had brought up in our previous conversation, was that we're in a really interesting state with cybersecurity, where the idea now is that the perimeter itself has collapsed. It was the idea that you could sort of defend at the gate. And you had an interesting phrase where you said, how do you defend yourself when the fraudsters aren't breaking in, they're just logging in? And how much different that is from maybe a previous paradigm when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, we're all used to, if we look into our bank accounts and any online application, we use username and passwords. But the reality is that those are no longer sufficient. Even when we augmented with MFA, 18 months ago, I would have said it's a great deterrent. It was at 0.07% according to Microsoft being bypassed. Today, it's being bypassed in the single-digit realm. And so you can no longer rely that a legitimate user is behind that username and password. So you have to shift towards who's the person behind it and really check that it's the right person. It's not a deep fake. It's not a threat actor. It's not nation state. And that's a shift where you shouldn't be scared. We're not asking to rip and replace, we're asking to augment, and that's where AI plays a role too.
And don't you just love the new lingo? Mule accounts, data and identity harvesting. There's some new, completely new words for all of us to start getting on, because exactly like you said, because fraudsters now are not breaking in, they're logging in. They're pretending to be customers, they're pretending to be members because they have ulterior motives, either to be new account opening, or they just want to infiltrate the system and get everything else. So perimeter is a thing of the past, for sure. It's about very deep behavioral analysis, very deep intelligence, and feels like an orchestra. It's not just one instrument. It's everything that we can cover.
Yeah, maybe just to augment, I guess, two things. One is I was on the same page with you as deepfake technologies. I had invested many years ago this company called Pindrop Security. They were working with the telecom vendors to sort of embed that technology. But now, since AI has come around, they have been able to use that technology, and actually, I guess they kind of mimicked one of the senators' voices, and they can kind of demonstrate that voice cloning is kind of here, and it's happening. So that's deepfake is one, and the other thing is agentic commerce. I think that's going to be a big tailwind for cybersecurity threats, I suppose, because I think now you have users, to your point, about could be legitimate, but then the agents may not be,
Exactly.
and having the right credentials to do the work, right? So it's a wild, wild west.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that's interesting, and you mentioned the idea of the change in 18 months to go from something that's actually working fairly well to something that probably needs to be abandoned in a certain way of looking at it. Just thinking about that time span, how short that really is, and how things can change. I know one of the things that's become particularly popular and widespread is the idea of continuous monitoring, that you're not just walking as they come in the gate, but the entire time they're there, you're kind of keeping an eye on them. And the one thing I know that kind of thing often brings up is a concern about customer friction and how that might impact on the customer experience. That is, as you layer on more ways to try to make sure that the person who's accessing the different resources is the correct person, does that friction at a certain point become prohibitive for participation for the individual? And I'm curious how you see that balance.
I mean, for me, it's about identity threat detection is a risk-based approach, meaning if I do a transaction that has low risk, might be initial login, I use passive risk signals. I look at the device status, I look at geolocation. The end user will not even know what I'm doing in the background. But let's say now I'm going into my account profile and I try to update my address and my phone number, which is an indicator of potential account takeover. That's where we should step up the authentication. We should use more signals like the cell phone. Where is that located? Often, especially in the banking financial service industry, you get the one-time password being sent. And we will talk later about if that's still a good approach or not. But so depending on the risk of the transaction, you can model the authentication methods that you will apply, and you can chain them together. And so it minimizes the impact, the friction that it has on the end user. But yeah, even when you use verification methods, like I experienced myself, where if that method fails, and you can't log into account based on that, you might move on and buy your hotel room somewhere else because you're frustrated.
Yeah.
So it's not just end user experience, it really has a huge impact on the organization that provides these type of services.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I guess, I mean, what I would add is that it's a two-speed organization, right? You got to have an ability to sort of create low friction for the ones that you kind of have vetted in some form or shape, and then the high-risk ones. You got to have, at the end of the day, when I think about it from an investor lens, we're thinking about it from, like, what are the data aspects that you can use to sort of assess and create a bit of a more of a signal above the noise. So is it the live, I mean, there are many aspects, or maybe just to list a couple, like liveliness of that persona that's actually taking that biometrics, device intelligence. You pointed, like, the company I mentioned, Sardine, has like 5 billion devices that they have scanned over the last many years. That's in their repository. So that improves your ability to think about the behavioral biometrics around it. Thinking about network graphs, so that you know how your various customers maybe are facing the same fraud. And also, there's many ways to sort of identify the high-risk personas and then take action based on that. So I think the two-speed organization is how I think about it.
I think for me, and what keeps me up at night, because it's, in any shape or form, we're going to be attacked. We're going to have it. It's like the speed right now. And in the credit union space, trust is a big currency for us and our members, because we take pride on knowing every single one of our members. We have that proximity. So that trust, for me, is my North Star. So adding more, because I cannot face those threats, adding more friction and adding more steps. And like Torsten mentioned, anybody can, 5 minutes, be like, I'm done with here. I'm going to go to the next one. That sweet spot is crucial. So I'm a firm believer of knowing patterns, identifying. So based on that trust, identifying, why is David, withdrawing money all of a sudden from, I don't know, Africa? Or why is he, and he hasn't told me, or why all of a sudden he uses another credit card for that? So kind of patterns that are outside the normal. So intelligence, again, on the back end, that David does not realize and does not see. Using, obviously, the technology, but more of augmenting the human aspect and the human touch, not complete reliance.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a great deal of sense. I think that I was talking another conversation about stablecoins and the idea of consumers getting more comfortable with things that are new and different and so forth, and the idea that speed is good, but that people are willing to sacrifice speed if trust, if confidence is going to be a problem. If I'm going to go to a supermarket, I don't expect much friction. If I'm going to go to a bar, I do expect a little bit of friction. Yeah. If I'm visiting the White House, even more. And there's an understanding at that level. And as long as that's compatible with the expectations I have, then I don't even think of it as friction. I think of it as security for myself, perhaps, as well. One of the things I wanted to talk about quite a bit, and you've all touched on this before, is the idea that fraud, often they have the idea of the lone hacker somewhere in a basement who's breaking into people's accounts and things like that. And as we learn that fraud has really become an international, industrial scale operation in many, many respects, a national one in some cases without being too specific. And I'm curious how that aspect of it, that it's not the hacker in some basement, but it's actually networks of individuals often getting together and creating these problems. How does that change the general nature of the threat and of defending the threat, in your opinion?
I think it's a whole organization right now. It's a whole enterprise. They have like finance, HR, marketing. They operate, like you say, it's definitely not from a garage or a basement. So we need to treat them like that they're super organized, and they do something that financial institutions in particular don't do. They share. They share information, they share data. Not share because sharing is caring. Obviously, they sell it to each other. But there is definitely out there dark web. I've heard different terms. You can educate us more about, there was a penetration in some network, and the data is out there and everybody's grabbing. So they are getting in touch with that. So I do see it as an international aspect, and really cross-border doesn't make a difference. It's just larger, much larger.
No, I would agree. I mean, you can go out, you can hire a ransomware as a service as a threat actor, and you did your initial work, you hand it over, and they run a whole campaign for you. So we as defenders, we have to, first of all, stay agile, meaning really do our research. I always compare it with NFL coaching, correct? You don't send your team onto the practice field every day of the week. You go into the video room, you watch your opponent, what do they do? And quite frankly, I think we have to get better at this. The survey I mentioned earlier showed that most of the defenders are focused on things like phishing, MFA bypass. But these are the tactics of the past. They're 18 months ago. The attackers are leveraging SIM swapping, they do AI impersonation, all of these things, and we have to keep up with that. They will always be ahead, but we have to close that gap as much as possible, and so collaboration plays a big, big role.
Maybe one stat that I've heard recently is maybe some parts of Southeast Asia, about 25% of the GDP could be coming from operating scam centers. By the way, I'm from Southeast Asia. But the point is that this doesn't know boundaries anymore. So it's about collective intelligence. So let me use a real case study that we came across. Is one of our companies actually was able to find that one of their fintech clients was seeing a massive drawdown on cash into a specific account with a specific name. And so they wanted to use their network to figure out, let's ask this network a question, where else do you find this? Funnily enough, in 30 different customers, banks and fintechs, the fraudulent person was actually using the same cash out account name. So, firstly, that's dumb. But they were using it. So the point is that they could sort of use that proactively to sort of defend the ones that have not been defrauded just yet. So it goes into this world of it knows no boundaries, but we need also to have no boundaries and have a collective intelligence to sort of tackle.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We had many cases where we had one person account takeover or in muling. I call it muling, again, another word, that they went from dealership to dealership to dealership because we have this instant cash, most credit unions or instant account opening, and you can get some cash advance. So within 2 hours, they collected an enormous amount of money and then done, gone.
Good grief.
Gone in 60 seconds. So it's, I could say, yeah, but they definitely international ring because they were not to be found anywhere in the United States. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is really something else. One of the suggestions that's been raised, and I think all of you have touched on this idea, is the idea of collaboration. And we've heard it from time to time. I'm curious, Do you think that it is something that's actually going to be possible in financial services? What are the obstacles to making it happen in financial services? Are there examples either within financial services and other industries that have done a better job of collaborating in the same way, for example, you mentioned Murto, in the same way that a lot of the fraudsters are collaborating in their way? Are we going to see the same thing in financial services? Can we see something in financial services? Is it going to be more pooling of resources to defeat a threat that has pooled its resources against them?
Yeah, we see it on healthcare, airlines.
I see that in energy and defense, obviously. You know,
Yeah, not in financial services.
but I think in financial services, I guess something like, sorry to shamelessly talk about Sardine's Sonar program, but it has multiple banks and fintech kind of collaborating on it so that everyone is better for it, right? But I think, I don't know if it's, I don't know the answer to it. Is it better done by the constituents like yourselves, or done by third parties like yourself? But you know, the friction is then you got to get folks like yourself onto that platform. So I don't know the true answer to that, and there's a bit of a learning curve there.
I mean, quite frankly, I've been blessed to get invited to a lot of ISECs in the energy space, airline space, and my takeaway is that FS-ISEC is doing a quite good job in collaborating compared to other areas, probably equal so to energy. But I think the biggest challenge is always when it comes to collaboration, you're also competing against each other.
Yeah.
And so do you want to pass on specific information to your competitor? And that's always holding us back. Attackers, threat actors, they don't see themselves competing against each other. And that's why for them sharing is so easy.
Right.
We work in a commercial space where we are kind of limited in what we can share or not. And I think that's really the shortcoming.
I really don't understand that. I see it too as a competitive element. I don't understand it. And whoever creates a platform officially that we can go in and say, this is what happened today, this is what happened this afternoon, I'll be the first one to sign up. And I see it always at our own initiative, wherever all the organizations that have been, it is our own initiative to say, hey, let's do a roundtable every Friday. Let's meet and let's share. Or pick up the phone to call your buddies. But whoever operationalizes this, I think it will be groundbreaking, culturally as well.
It's interesting, and you mentioned culture, and I wonder the degree to which some of these things play. You mentioned the idea of competition, but other industries have competition. And be able to maybe do a better job than financial services. Is it a matter of the culture of financial services? Is it a matter of the regulated nature of financial services? Is it a matter of simply the crisis, crazy as it sounds, not becoming acute enough for them to have to say, we're going to have to do this whether we feel like we're competitors or not, because the alternative is a form of perdition, almost.
Yeah. Oh, we put somebody to sleep.
We needed a light moment there. I'm going to stay on the sidelines of this question if you guys have any thoughts on that.
What do you think, Darcy?
I mean, unfortunately, it's always that we react when something big happens, correct? We're not kind of being proactive and do things only when something happens. We start reacting, and we might come together and collaborate better. And that's the sad story, again, that makes the difference between the threat actors and the defenders.
I agree. Unfortunately, that's the reality right now. And I think it's definitely culturally driven.
Yeah.
I think it's banks, credit unions, we're all we're all into that, because we do feel that it potentially diminishes our credibility with our customers or members, that God forbid that my money's not safe there, or it can be a client pitch for somebody else. I really don't understand it, because I see the risk of us being exposed right now a lot heavier. The barbell goes like this, rather than me sharing and say openly, I've been targeted by X, Y, Z, and this is how it happened. I mean, it's kind of like admitting vulnerability, which is very, very rare in an organization such as financial services.
But I guess maybe there's, I guess I'm back on that. Maybe there's something to do with the penalties and all that kind of things that is associated with the financial sector.
Yeah, probably.
Which, but I've seen other spaces whereby you can have you can have competing solutions, but you could sort of do, you can map out these are areas that are central to all organizations, and let's agree to have this as a pre-competitive space, whereby we create solutions that is industry-wide adoptable, if there's such a word, but your engagements with the respective organizations that you may want to sell the solutions to, that's your. But everyone starts almost with a similar playing ground because, I mean,
Yes.
the platform has been built of sorts. But hey, what do I know?
No, it's accurate. Well said.
No, absolutely. One of the things that we talked about a moment ago was the idea of the role of AI. And a number of you had some really interesting ways and metaphors and ways of looking at it. Murti, I think you had the phrase that AI is both the sword and the shield, which I thought was really interesting. Arvind, you talked about as the offense and the defense. And I wonder if you could elaborate on those ideas a little bit and talk about what it means for banks when you've got that sense that the same thing that is delivering new threats, more severe threats, is also the same technology that's going to allow you to defend yourself against these threats.
Yeah. They're definitely fraudsters, fraud rings. They're using AI, absolutely certain, right? No doubt about that. They're using it for deepfakes, imitating clients, members, everything. They know everything about me, you, what we spend, what we do. We are trying not to catch up, I feel again. I sound very pessimistic today, I'm sorry, but it's a real threat. We're trying to catch up. And I think the winner of this that will be ahead, that will become proactive, is using that deep intelligence, what I mentioned before and what you mentioned, Torsten, is that I will use AI in the same way. So why cannot I use that to my defense? So predict David's expenses, predict what the behavior is going to be like, and adjust my defenses accordingly. Not just raise a big wall or raise 5 authentication steps or give out, little hardware, and that's not AI use, and that's not a good use. It's becoming on the other side, crossing a little bit on the dark side, and use that AI to predict what is David going to behave like, and therefore add security measures there.
Yeah, I guess maybe to augment, I would say, I think on the offense side, the threat actors, they are well ahead of folks, right? I mean, they're probably creating fully autonomous agents running this thing. Yeah. As long as you know the mouse is at the one end of the browser, and still someone is logging in, that it's a threat actor that is just agents running on farms. Yeah. But on the defense side, I guess it's about it's about how do you sort of detect anomalies? How do you use AI to write the code, and how do you use AI to write the rules? But of course, in the shadow with a human validator, right? Because I think there is still this realm of KYC, KYB, which you still want a human to be in the loop. I don't think any of the institutions are ready to sort of let it be autonomous. But in my line of work, I've seen companies kind of create KYC agents that are completely 95% autonomous. So there's only just deflection to take care of the exceptions. There are, business due diligence kind of agents. That means you can go and research everything and it makes it easier for the compliance folks. And then you also have this whole notion of fraud ops agents, right? I mean, basically taking all the data aspects that I talked about earlier, like the knowledge graphs and signals from the liveliness, etc., and curate a data pipeline to be able to say, okay, is this a fraudulent sort of activity? How do you sort of surface it up again to the human? Because I don't think we are in a state of being fully autonomous. Like obviously, this anthropic mythos thing, I had to bring it out. Right? It kind of created this flurry of worry that, hey, this is here. This AGI on the cyber side is here. We can debate over drinks as to whether that's a marketing ploy or not. But I think the premise is that it's happening. And then the question is, is a good thinker for people in seats like Marto to think about, hey, what are you doing on your adopting these agents?
I mean, threat actors obviously weaponized AI in the simplest way. For instance, for phishing attacks, we all learned in security awareness, look out for poor English. That's gone. That's out of the window.
Yeah.
That telltale is gone. When it comes to defenders, I think the important thing is the pattern analysis, detecting a normal behavior and immediately creating a feedback loop where you're updating your threat models and also your policies. And that's, again, to minimize that agility gap. In the past, it took us a long time to adjust our policies internally. AI can help to shorten that time frame dramatically.
Yeah, good point.
Excellent point. Excellent point. It looks like we're running low on time, so I've got one last question that I wanted to ask, and that has to do with a number of people I've talked to in the cybersecurity field have expressed the idea that the technology is absolutely important, but the ultimate weak link is the individual behind the technology. Someone who's extremely close to me lost their entire life savings with one click. So it's something I always think about. And I wonder, what are things that institutions can do to shore up that aspect of the defense, to make individuals less the point of vulnerability for the institutions that they might be working with or be partnering with or be customers of?
I'll keep it short. One is start with skepticism in the organization that don't trust anything. And the other one is AI fluency. Just how to think about the different ways to either what are threat vectors, but also just what are different tools that are coming up to educate or eradicate, perhaps.
Yeah, I think simulation, leveraging AI, leveraging other technologies, so that the end user can learn by experiencing, very important.
Yeah, I would say resilient operations, resilient systems. You need to build resiliency and be able to adapt modernization and be able to pick up stuff like that.
Excellent, excellent. Well, unfortunately, we run out of time for our conversation. There's so much we could be covering and discussing about this, and perhaps we'll get into some of that in the fall. When we reconvene, that would be great. If you were to join me in thanking our panelists for a very insightful conversation on our topic today. Thank you.